Miss Baptiste, your position with this foundation ends today. Nobody in that room breathed. There were 40 people at the table. Donors, directors, 2 senators, a woman from the culture ministry who had flown in that morning. And standing at the front with her presentation still open on the screen behind her was Nia Baptiste, who ran the public reading room and who had just been fired in front of every single one of them. She had not broken a rule. She had not raised her voice. She had not done one thing wrong. The man who fired her was Cha Do-yun. He ran the foundation. He also ran a great deal else that never appeared in any annual report, and there were men in that city who went pale when somebody said his name at a dinner table. He gave no reason. He was asked for one, and he said a single word. No. A young intern named So-ra stood up. She was 23 years old, and she had been at the foundation for 5 weeks, and she opened her mouth to object. And Nia turned and stopped her with 3 quiet words. "Sit down, sweetheart." Then Nia closed her folder. She thanked the room for the years. She told the volunteers where she had left the instructions for next month's reading program. And she mentioned that they were color-coded, and that they would be fine. And she walked out with her chin level and her hands steady, and the doors closed behind her, and the whispering started before she had reached the lift. Everyone in that building decided they knew what had happened. She was too loud, too warm, too familiar with the staff. Not the right face for a foundation like this one. Every single one of them was wrong. Because Cha Do-yun had not fired Nia Baptiste for failing. He had fired her because somebody inside that building had spent 11 months building a case that would put her in prison. There were 9 days left on the clock. Getting her name off the payroll was the only way to break it. He could not tell her. That was the part that would cost him. The next afternoon, in a bookshop the size of a garage in an alley on the other side of the river, a bell rang above the door, and the most feared man in Seoul walked in, stood among the shelves in a suit worth more than the shop, and said the strangest sentence of his life. "I would like to join a class." Insane. 2 questions sit under all of it. What do you do when the only way to protect someone is to become the worst thing that ever happened to them? And what happens to a man like that when he walks into a small, warm room full of ordinary people? And nobody there is afraid of him at all. Stay. It gets funnier before it gets serious again. 6 hours before she was fired, Nia Baptiste was arguing with a security guard about his daughter. "She got in," the guard said, trying not to smile. "She got in." Nia put both hands flat on the desk. "Mr. Bay, she got into the pharmacy program and you were going to walk past me and say nothing. It is not a large thing. It is an enormous thing. Sit down. I am making you coffee. I am working. You are standing in a reading room at 7 in the morning. Sit." He sat. He drank the coffee. He talked about his daughter for 11 minutes, which was longer than he had spoken to anyone in that building all year. This was the trouble with Nia Baptiste, according to the people who had trouble with her. She was loud. She laughed at full volume in a building designed for hush. She knew the name of every cleaner and every driver and every guard, and she used them. She hugged people. She cried at other people's good news. The foundation was a cathedral of pale stone and quiet money, and she moved through it like somebody's aunt. Han Seo, Yan walked past the reading room at 7:20 and glanced in and saw a director of nothing sitting with a guard, laughing. She did not frown. Seo Yeon never frowned. Later that morning, in a meeting about something else entirely, she said, "May I raise a very small thing? Please. The reading room. It is wonderful, of course." A soft smile. "I only wonder whether we are clear on what it is for. Is it a public facility, or is it becoming somewhere the staff go to socialize?" Nobody has complained. No, nobody would. She let that sit exactly 1 second. That is rather my point. 2 directors nodded slowly, It sounded reasonable. Everything CO Yeon said sounded reasonable. At 10, the board met. Nia had prepared for 3 weeks. Her project was simple, and she believed in it completely. Thousands of donated books delivered into the working neighborhoods on the far side of the river, where the nearest library was 2 bus rides away, and children did not go. Her first slides went well. People nodded. Somebody asked a good question, and she answered it happily. Then Cha Do-yoon spoke. Miss Baptiste. Nia turned. Yes, Mr. Cha, your position with this foundation ends today. She stood there for 4 full seconds. May I ask why? No, that was when So-ra stood up, the intern. 23 5 weeks is in the job, a lanyard she still wore proudly. Mr. Cha, that is not, she started. And her voice went thin, and Nia turned and looked at her and shook her head once. Sit down, sweetheart, Nia said it gently. Don't spend your job on my bad day. So-ra sat down. She was crying quietly and furious with herself for it. Nia closed her folder. Thank you for the years, she said to the room. The reading program for next month is finished. The instructions are in the blue folder on the middle shelf, and everything is color-coded. She looked toward the back, where 2 volunteers sat frozen. You will be fine. You have always been fine. I just did the labels. She picked up her bag. Miss Baptiste, said the woman from the Culture Ministry, half rising. I am sorry. Is there some explanation? There will be, Nia said. There always is eventually, and she walked out. The whispering started immediately. CO Yeon let it run for exactly the right amount of time. Then she sighed softly, so that the 6 people nearest her could hear it. What an unfortunate situation, she said. Sometimes standards require difficult decisions. Several directors nodded. It sounded reasonable. It was designed to sound reasonable. Cha Do-yoon did not move. He sat at the head of the table while the room emptied around him, and he looked at the chair Nia had been standing beside, and he thought about the file. 11 months of it. Forged invoices, copied signatures. Approval records altered so carefully that 3 auditors had gone through them and found nothing wrong, and every single thread pointing at one name. 9 days until the ministry audit, and a clause nobody in that room knew about, buried in a submission to the prosecutor's office, that would open the moment the audit confirmed that Nia Baptiste was an employee of the Cha Foundation. Get the name off the payroll, and the whole apparatus collapsed on itself. Keep her, and she went to prison for something she had not done. His head of security came in and stood at a respectful distance. She is gone, sir. Put people on her. Protection? Yes, should she know. Do-yeon stood up. No, he said. She must believe she simply lost her job. Outside, Nia stepped into the afternoon sun, holding one cardboard box. Inside it were 3 photographs. A chipped mug that said, World's Okayest Librarian, and a stack of handwritten reading lists for children who were not going to get them from her now. She looked back up at the building. All that pale stone. Well, she said, to nobody. New chapter. Then she went home and cried for about 40 minutes. She called her sister in Houston and cried again. She ate an entire container of ice cream standing at the kitchen counter, because she was a human being and not a poster. By 9 that evening, she had washed the bowl. By noon the next day, she had applied to 6 places. Only one answered. Insane. It was not prestigious. It was a bookshop the size of a garage, wedged into an alley between a bakery and a flower stall, in a neighborhood where the rents were low and the buildings leaned slightly toward each other. The pay was less than half what she had been making. Nia took it that afternoon. The owner was 72 years old, roughly the size of a bird, with silver hair pinned up with a wooden pin and reading glasses on a beaded chain. She looked Nia up and down over the top of them. You are the American, Nia Baptiste. You worked at the big foundation. I did, and now you are here. Halmione Yoon gestured at the shop, which contained 4 shelves, 2 mismatched chairs, and a small table with a chipped teapot on it. Why? Nia looked around properly. Because there are books in it, she said, and because you are still open at 6 on a Tuesday, which means you are stubborn, and I like stubborn. Halmione Yoon considered this for a moment. Start tomorrow, she said. The first thing Nia noticed was the quiet, not peaceful. Empty, good books, good light, almost nobody in it, so she did the only thing she had ever known how to do. Why are you moving my chairs? Said Halmione Yoon on the second day. Because a grandmother and a child cannot talk across a table that wide. They have managed for 9 years. Have they, though? By the end of the week, there were handwritten cards taped along every shelf. If you like this one, try this. By the end of the second week, the teapot went on at 3 every afternoon, and nobody was charged for it. You are giving away tea, Halmione Yoon said. I am, for free. That is generally what giving away means. You are a strange woman. You have said that 4 times now. It keeps being true. And she talked to people. That was all of it. She asked. And then she listened like the answer mattered, which it did. People who had walked past that alley for 11 years started coming inside. Within 2 weeks, there were children in the shop after school. Within 3, there was a queue at 3 in the afternoon for tea nobody was paying for. On a Saturday in the second month, Halmione Yoon watched 400,000 won of stock go out of the door and said nothing at all about it, which in her language was a standing ovation. We should run classes, Nia said, in the second month. We have 4 shelves and 2 chairs. So we buy 6 more chairs. With what? With the tea money you keep telling me I am not making. Halmione Yoon looked at her over the glasses for a long moment. 6 chairs, she said. No more. There was a poetry night on Tuesdays. 8 chairs in a circle, 3,000 won a head. There was a knitting circle on Thursdays that was technically taught by Halmione Yoon and actually taught by 4 women in their 60s who had opinions. There was a parent and child reading hour on Saturday mornings, and beside the door there was a wooden box with a slot cut in the top for anyone who kept a shop book too long. Nia had painted the label herself. Late fees, no exceptions. This means you. On a Wednesday in the 3rd month, a black sedan came into the alley. It did not fit. It came in slowly and stopped, and it blocked the entire lane. And the man from the bakery stood in his doorway with a tray of bread and stared at it. The bell above the shop door rang. Nia looked up from a box of returns. Cha Do-yoon was standing in the middle of her bookshop in a charcoal suit that cost more than the building's rent for a year. For about 2 seconds, she genuinely thought she was imagining it. Good afternoon, Mr. Cha, she said. Miss Baptiste. Silence. Halmione Yoon, behind the counter, did not even pretend to be doing something else. She simply put down her glasses and watched, openly, the way you watch television. Do-yeon took 2 steps forward. I would like to join a class. Nia blinked. I am sorry? A class. You want to join a class? She folded her hands. Which class? He had clearly not thought this far. She watched him not have thought this far. It took him a moment. The poetry one, he said. Halmione Yoon coughed. It was the loudest and least convincing cough Nia had ever heard in her life. The poetry one, Nia said slowly. Tuesdays, 7 o'clock, 8 people. We go around the circle and everyone reads 4 lines out loud. Yes, out loud. I understood you the first time. Mr. Cha, do you like poetry? He looked at the shelves for a while. I might, he said. Nia wrote his name in the book. She was aware, as she did it, that she was writing the name of the most dangerous man in the city into a school notebook, underneath a woman called Mrs. Kang who came for the biscuits. 3,000 won, she said. He paid in cash. He did not have anything smaller than a 50. He waited for the change. Outside in the sedan, 4 men watched their employer disappear into a bookshop. 3 minutes, said Maru, who was the largest and the least surprised by anything. He is buying a book, said Jin. He does not buy books. He owns a foundation with a library in it. Then, what is he doing? Maru put his seat back. I have decided not to ask. In the back, Sung-ho, who was the youngest and had been with them for 5 months, was doing something on his phone. What is that? Said Byung-chul. A spreadsheet. The car went quiet. A what? A spreadsheet. Sung-ho did not look up. Date. Duration. Class enrolled. Number of times he pretends not to know where a shelf is. Byung-chul turned all the way around in his seat. You are keeping statistics on the boss. I like data. Maru closed his eyes. We protect the most dangerous man in Seoul, he said. And somehow we have become a book club. He came to poetry night. He sat in the circle in a suit, between a retired postal worker and a girl of 19, who wrote everything in purple ink. When it came around to him, he opened the book. He went through 4 lines about a river, in a completely flat voice. Then he shut it again. The circle applauded politely. He looked faintly startled by the applause. That was very good, said Mrs. Kang, patting his arm. It was 4 lines. And you said all 4 of them. That is the minimum requirement. Young man's, said Mrs. Kang. Take the compliment. Nobody had patted Cha Do-yun's arm in about 20 years. Nobody had called him young man, since roughly the same period. He did not appear to know what to do with his face. He came back on Thursday. Knitting, Nia said. Yes. Do you knit? No. Would you like to learn to knit? He thought about it, seriously, the way he thought about everything. Yes, he said. It went badly. Within 11 minutes, his yarn was a single dense knot, roughly the size of a fist. What have you done to it? Said the woman beside him. I followed the instruction. Which instruction? Keep the tension even. That is not tension. That is a hostage. She took it out of his hands without asking, undid the whole thing, and gave it back to him rolled properly. Thank you, he said. Do not hold it so tight. It is wool. It is not going anywhere. He looked at the wool for a while. Halmione-yoon watched all of this from the counter with an expression of profound satisfaction. Saturday was the parent and child reading hour. He arrived at 10. Nia looked past him, and then behind him, and then back at him. Mr. Cha. Miss Baptiste. This is the parent and child hour. Yes. Do you own a child? No. Are you planning to? He considered it. Possibly, he said. She let him stay. Of course she let him stay. He sat in the corner chair with an oversized picture book about a bear, looking exactly as out of place as a wolf at a christening. 40 minutes in, a 4-year-old named Ha-yoon climbed into the chair beside him. She leaned against his arm and fell asleep. He did not move for 25 minutes. He barely breathed. When the child's mother came to collect her, apologizing, Do-yun said, "It was not a problem," in the voice of a man who had just been handed something and did not know where to put it. Nia watched the whole thing from behind the counter. You did not move, she said afterward. She was asleep for 25 minutes. 26. You counted. Do-yun picked up his coat. I count most things, he said. Nia had to go into the back room for a second. The classes became a routines, which meant the alley became a routine. The bakery started keeping back 2 of the good rolls on Tuesdays because the tall one in the suit always bought them and never asked the price. He stayed after sometimes. He helped stack chairs. He was surprisingly good at it and surprisingly bad at shelving. Wrong shelf, Nia said one evening. He looked at the spine, then at the label. I was close. You were in the correct building. He moved the book. Better? Marginally. There was a rhythm to it by then that neither of them had agreed to. She corrected him. He accepted correction from her and from nobody else alive. Halmione Yoon observed this and made a private note. "Child," she said to Nia one afternoon, apropos of nothing. "Yes? That man is not here for the books." Nia laughed so hard she had to sit down. "Halmione, he owns a foundation with a library in it. If he wanted books, he would buy a publisher." Said Halmione Yoon and went back to her knitting. The Romance Book Club met on the last Wednesday of the month. Nia came around the shelves with an armful of returns and stopped. Cha Do-yun was in the good chair by the window, with a novel open. She could see the cover. The cover had a man on it, with his shirt substantially undone. She stood there. "Mr. Cha," he turned a page. "Miss Baptiste, is that a romance novel?" "Yes. I thought men like you only read strategy. I am studying negotiation. A beat. That chapter especially." The shop made a sound Nia had never heard it make. Halmione Yoon laughed so hard she had to hold the counter. 2 teenagers in the corner actually applauded. Mrs. Kang said, "Oh my," approximately 4 times. Cha Do-yun closed the book with enormous dignity, and his ears went slowly and completely red. Outside in the sedan, Byung-chul lowered his window slightly because of the noise. "What is happening in there?" "I think," said Jin. The boss made a joke. There was a pause. Impossible. In the back, Sing-ho was typing. "What are you doing?" said Maru without opening his eyes, adding a column. "Do not tell me. Successful attempts at humor." Maru put a hand over his face. None of them knew what else was happening that month. Every night, in an office on the top floor of a pale stone building, Cha Do-yun went through security footage from the previous year, frame by frame. A small team traced 11 months of forged approvals back through a system built to make them untraceable. On the 14th night, he found it. "Stop," he said. "Go back 4 seconds." The screen went back 4 seconds. A woman crossed a corridor alone and put a card to a reader. Time. 11 minutes past midnight, sir. And where does the statement say she was? His investigator turned a page. A donor's dinner. Another district. 40 people saw her there. They did see her there, Do-yun said. She left at 11:30 and came back at 1. He did not look away from the screen. Nobody counts the middle of an evening. His investigator set down a second file. Every forged signature was made from a template, he said. The template came off a document only 4 people could access, and she is one of them. She is one of them, sir. Do-yun looked at the screen for a long moment. "Keep going," he said. "I want it so complete that nobody in that room can ask a single question." Seo Yeon, meanwhile, was reading a newspaper. It was a small piece in the culture section. A neighborhood bookshop in an alley had somehow become the busiest small shop in its district. The woman running it apparently remembered what every customer liked before they did. There was a photograph. Nia was laughing in it. Seo Yeon set the paper down very carefully. Nia Baptiste was not supposed to recover. She was supposed to disappear quietly into a smaller life, the way disgraced people do, and become a cautionary sentence at the end of a meeting. Instead, she was in the newspaper, laughing. Seo Yeon looked at the invitation list for the Foundation's annual gala. 200 guests, politicians, donors, 3 networks with cameras. She added 1 name to it by hand. If Nia Baptiste wanted to be visible again, Seo Yeon thought, then let her be visible in a room where everyone still remembered exactly why she had been thrown out. The invitation arrived at the shop on a Thursday. Nia opened it at the counter and stood there with it for a while. Halmione Yoon looked over her glasses. "Are you going?" "The volunteers will be there," Nia said. "So Ra will be there." She still writes to me. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. The ballroom had chandeliers and a string quartet, and 200 of the most photographed people in the city. Nia arrived in a navy dress and immediately made the evening worse for Han Seo-yeon. 6 volunteers crossed the floor to hug her. 2 children from the old reading program ran at her legs. An elderly donor who had never learned anybody's name said, "Ah, the book lady," with genuine delight. Seo-yeon counted every one of those greetings. At 9 o'clock, she took the stage. She was very good. She thanked everyone. She spoke about growth and standards and the responsibility of an institution to protect its reputation. Then a photograph of the foundation reading room appeared on the screen behind her. "As many of you will remember," Seo-yeon said gently, "we were obliged to make difficult staffing decisions this year. 200 heads did not turn toward Nia, which was worse than if they had. It is never pleasant," Seo-yeon said, "when a colleague simply does not meet the standard this institution requires." Nia did not move. She folded her hands in front of her and waited, because she had learned a long time ago that not every accusation deserves an immediate answer. Seo-yeon mistook that for surrender, "And I believe," she said, "that time has shown those decisions were necessary. It has not." The room turned. Cha Do-yeon was on his feet. Nobody interrupted Cha Do-yeon. There was no precedent for the reverse. He crossed the floor to the stage without hurrying and held out his hand. And Seo-yeon, after a moment that lasted slightly too long, gave him the microphone. "For 11 months, he said, "this foundation has been running a confidential investigation into financial fraud." The room went very quiet. "Tonight it is finished." He looked toward the technical desk. The first file. Access logs appeared on the screen. Dates, times, doors. The second, surveillance stills. A woman alone in an archive at 11 minutes past midnight. The third, edit histories. Signature templates. 11 months of a machine built one small piece at a time. Somebody at the third table said, out loud, "Those are her access codes." "Yes," said Do-yeon, "they are." His voice did not rise once. "Every allegation against Nia Baptiste was manufactured," he said. "The invoices were forged. The signatures were copied from a template. The approval trail was built to point at one person, and it was constructed by the person standing beside me." Seo-yeon said, "That is not," and stopped, because there was nothing after it. "You had 9 days," Do-yeon said. "The submission to the prosecutor's office would have opened the moment the audit confirmed she was still on the payroll." He set the microphone down on the podium. "So I took her off the payroll." The silence in that ballroom had a physical weight. "Do-yeon," Seo-yeon said. "Whatever you believe you have, this is not the room." "It is exactly the room," he said. "These people watched you say she was not good enough. They can watch the rest of it too." Security came for her quietly. Nobody defended her. Not one director, not one donor. The politeness she had used as a weapon for 6 years closed over her without a sound, and she went out through a side door with her chin up and nothing left to say. Everything went to the prosecutors with her, all of it. Complete. Do-yeon came down off the stage. He walked the length of that ballroom, past 200 people and 3 television cameras, and stopped in front of Nia Baptiste. "I owe you an apology," he said. Nothing else. No speech. No account of what it had cost him. Nia looked at him for a long moment. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you cannot lie," he said simply. "It is the best thing about you. If I had told you, you would have walked into that boardroom, already sorry for me, and she would have seen it in your face before you sat down. That is a reason. It is. It is not the only thing you could have done." Nia's voice stayed level, and it stayed kind, and it did not let him off. "You could have sent me abroad on a project. You could have moved me to another division. You could have moved me to another division. You could have done 9 other things that did not end with me carrying a fruit in a box through a lobby, while 40 people saw what kind of woman I was." Do-yeon did not defend himself. "Yes, he said. I could have. You decided what I could carry, she said. You did not ask me. No, I did not. He said it without softening it. And something in the way he said it told her he had been carrying that particular sentence for 3 months, already fully formed, waiting for her to say it first. Nia let out a breath. All right, she said. All right? All right, I have heard you. She tilted her head. Now let us discuss the rest of it. The rest of it. You fired me in front of 200 people. She held up a finger. You followed me to a shop the size of a garage. Second finger. You enrolled in 4 separate classes, including one for parents, which you are not. That is accurate. Nia folded her arms, and you still owe the box 11,001. The ballroom went off like a dropped tray. It went on for some time. Somebody near the back actually whooped. A network cameraman had to steady his shot. Halmione Yoon, seated with the volunteers in a hand-knitted shawl she had made specifically for this evening, laughed until she had to take her glasses off. Cha Do-yun stood in the middle of it and smiled. Not the corner of his mouth, the whole thing. I will pay it, he said. That is not enough. Then what do I owe? Nia thought about it with tremendous seriousness. Dinner, she said. The applause started before he could answer. The offer came the following week in his office, with no lawyers in the room. Director of Community Education. Every literacy program, every partnership, every outreach project in the city. Nia went through all 16 pages before she said anything, because she was not a woman who signed things. 3 conditions, she said. Name them. The shop in the alley is funded. Permanently. Not as charity. As a partner site with its name on the paperwork, and Halmione Yoon stays in charge of it. Done. Second. So Ra gets a real contract and a real title. She stood up in a room where nobody else did. She was 23. Do-yun wrote it down. Third. Nia put the folder on the desk. You never decide what I can survive again. Not to protect me, not to spare me. You bring it to me, and you let me choose, even when the choice is bad. Especially then. He looked at her across the desk. That is the only one that will be difficult, he said. I know. Agreed. 3 months later, on a Tuesday, the bell rang above the door of a bookshop in an alley. Nia did not look up from the returns. Wrong shelf. I have not put anything anywhere yet. You are going to. Cha Do-yun took off his coat and picked up a book from the cart and, after visible thought, placed it between a cookbook and an atlas. Nia looked at it. Wrong shelf. Yes, I was close. You were in the correct building. He moved it. The bell rang again as somebody else came in, and a child shouted something in the back, and the kettle started. And from behind the counter, without lifting her eyes from her knitting, Halmione Yoon said, Our most expensive member has arrived. I pay 3,001 like everybody else, said Do-yun. Said Halmione Yoon, and the late fees. Nia started laughing and could not stop, and the man who ran half the city stood in a shop the size of a garage with a book in his hand and waited, entirely content for her to finish. Before you go, here is what I want to know. Was he right to take the decision out of her hands, or should he have trusted her with the truth and let her choose? Tell me down below. I read everyone.